Hi folks, it's David here just to tell you about the latest prize from our sponsors, footballprizes.co.uk. What Football Prizes do are limited raffles in which you can buy a ticket, and of course if your ticket comes up you win. And the Rangers mega bundle, well, it's very much worth winning. It's a Borna Barisic signed and framed shirt, and Yanis Hadji signed montage, a Ryan Kent signed montage, a Steven Gerrard signed Ibrox street sign, official 22, 21, 22 even, Rangers home and away shirts, and £200 in the Rangers Club Shop gift card. $9.95 is the ticket price, and there are only 135, so you've got 135 to 1 chance of winning. In fact, if they don't sell all 135, you've got a better chance of winning. I'll just repeat that though. Borna Barisic signed shirt, Yanis Hadji signed montage, Ryan Kent signed montage, Steven Gerrard signed Ibrox street sign, official 21-22 Rangers home and away shirts, and £200 to spend in the Rangers Club Shop. It's well worth a tenner to have a go at this. Go to footballprizes.co.uk, that's footballprizes.co.uk, and search for Rangers.
Hello and welcome to Heart and Hand Extra, your second Heart and Hand show of the week. I am your host, Adam Thornton, and tonight's episode will be slightly shorter as we look ahead to Saturday's top of the table clash against Hearts at Ibrox. Joining me for tonight's show, we have Ross Hutton. Ross, how are you doing?
I'm very well, mate. Good to be back talking about Rangers again, even though I do enjoy my internationals. But yeah, good to have Rangers back.
Yeah, that's the reason it will be a bit of a shorter show, not because no one wants to hear about the internationals. Ross is going to keep us up to date on those in the next segment, actually, but we don't have a huge amount of Rangers news to review as we record. Not much has really been happening. The guys have been coming back from international football, and the manager, speaking at the training day yesterday, just hoped that they were all coming back in one piece. So fingers crossed that is the case. The plan for this then is Ross will give us a little breakdown in terms of what's happened over the international weekend, or international fortnight, sorry. We'll talk through the strip release and the My Gers training day, which has happened this week, and then we'll finish off with a bit of a preview on the Hearts game. So, Ross, let's start off then. International news. You've got a new show on our Patreon network, which provides an update on international football for people who like these kind of things. How did our guys do when they were away this time?
Yes, I am one of those absolute weirdos that does quite enjoy maybe not the international break per se, but international football in general. So it's always something I've had a keen interest in. And obviously from a Rangers perspective, we've had a lot of players away. One of the main ones being, of course, Nathan Patterson. Now, Patterson had a massive impact on both of Scotland's games, really, even though he was a substitute in the second one. Played the full 90 minutes in Scotland's 3-2 win over Israel, won the corner that eventually led to the last minute winner. That was fantastic. And then got a wee bit of a rest in the second game. Ryan Fraser preferred there. Nathan Patterson maybe had a wee bit of a knock. We're hearing, I think he was on a booking as well, but he comes on within 2 minutes, sets up the winning goal for Lyndon Dykes, and that puts Scotland in a really strong position in that group. Stephen Davis, across the water, Northern Ireland, the UK and Rangers' most capped men's footballer now. Just a fantastic achievement. And we could sit here for the entire pod if you'd like and wax lyrical about Stephen Davis, not just a domestic career but an international one as well. Played the full 90 minutes and a disappointing Northern Ireland defeat to Switzerland, and then also featured against Bulgaria as well. Glenn Kamara was away with Finland, again a mainstay in that Finnish squad, played in there for Finland. He, as I say, you can't get enough of him in that squad. They absolutely love him over there. He played as well. Fashion Sakala scored for Zambia. That was a really good moment for him. You know, it's something we'd like to see a wee bit more of at Rangers, that kind of goal. I'm sure everyone will have seen the clips by now. Really good goal from him, getting him behind defence. It's something that we spoke about a wee while ago, Adam, just about that kind of style of finishing from Sakala. So that was fantastic for him. Speaking about goals, I'm sure we've all seen Yanis Hadji's against Germany. Just an absolutely magical goal from the wee man. Sends Rudiger to the shops, puts it through his legs. A fantastic finish. Looked ended 2-1 to Germany on the night. It's a fantastic side. But for Hadji himself, you know, a fantastic moment. Kamar Roof scored for Jamaica. That was a brilliant moment for him as well. He's in transit back now, which I'm sure we'll talk about when we discuss a game against Hearts. He's a wee bit of a doubt for the starting lineup just because of when that game played, but he's his way back now. He scored in the international break, so good for him as well. Bassey, Balogun, Aribo all featured for Nigeria. Balogun obviously scored for Nigeria. That was a wee bit of a mixed bag because he scored for Nigeria, fantastic finish there, and then went off injured. But, he is fine for the weekend, so that's the big thing. And I think that's kind of the main ones apart from Borna Barisic. He played for Croatia, didn't play in the first game, played in the second, and a wee bit of a hilarious moment where Croatia were chasing an equaliser. He stepped up to hit a free kick, tried to take it off Luka Modric. Modric said no, and then scored from it, which is always one of those funny things that you see. So that's kind of the main ones. And as always for these international breaks, as much as I say I personally enjoy international football, the big one is that everyone kind of comes back fit and firing, and it seems like that is the case.
That Luka Modric one was quite funny. I almost expect him to turn around and say, "What were you worried about?"
Aye. Is that the one with Jermaine Defoe as well when he was over in America? I think when he tries to take a free kick off someone and the player goes and scores it, and just the look on his face afterwards. I love seeing that in football. It's brilliant.
Yeah, there's a few. I want to pick out a few of these actually because you mentioned Nigeria there. It's a mixed bag, as you said, for Balogun, but we now have 3 players in the Nigeria squad, which is really good news. However, with the Cup of Nations coming up, that and we don't know if Helander is going to be available at that point. It's going to be a little bit of an issue for us having both Bassey and Balogun who can play centre half not being available. I guess the saving grace for us, Ross, is that we have the winter break. I'm not sure anybody would ever really call the winter break a saving grace, but here we are. But we have that at the start, so it may minimise the impact, although I would imagine Nigeria will be thinking they can go quite deep in the tournament, so we could be without all 3 of them for most of January, which is a bit of a concern for us.
It's been a kind of long-standing concern of mine. Obviously it's fantastic for them, as we say, to be involved in that Nigerian squad, and for us as a club, we want to have as many international players as possible because it maximises their value. It's good for our presence on the international stage. There's lots of benefits to us, but from a purely footballing level, yeah, it's been a bit of a long-standing concern of mine. The options at centre half, as you mentioned, are limited. You'd really have only at that point Goldson and Simpson with next to no cover unless you're going to bring in maybe a Leon King or someone like that. Is that a position we want to find ourselves in? Not ideally, and as much as I'm delighted for them, I'm a Rangers fan first, and I'm going to be selfish. Nigeria will have ambitions of going quite deep into that tournament. I think them as players will have ambitions of going quite deep into that tournament, but from a purely Rangers point of view, it's a concern. Now, from the rumour mill this week, there's a player for the team we're going to play against on Saturday that we could be looking at and possibly bringing in early, but I think that's a different discussion. But it's something we need to keep an eye on, especially if Helander will either just be back, which he'll be rusty at that point, or not available at all. So, yeah, it's something to keep an eye on there, I think, for sure.
Yeah, so I think January's going to be interesting with that in mind. We've also got Helander coming back from injury, but given what the manager said about a month ago, it would be 3 months he thought before we would really see him back. I think erring on the side of caution, that's probably 3 months before he starts training, so it could be into January and February before we even see him back. So I would imagine Ross Wilson and the scouting team have irons in the fire, whether it's loan signings that can come in, maybe that haven't been getting minutes in the Premier League or whatever, that can come in for 6 months and make an impact, or maybe, like you said, a Bosman signing that we can bring in January, even similar to what happened with Jack Simpson and Scott Wright this year round. So we'll see, but I think definitely centre back would be a priority, particularly with the issues with the African Cup of Nations for sure. Let's go back to Patterson, Ross, because I think it's quite interesting. I don't like to make these proclamations over who's the number 1 pick for anything really, but they certainly had the jersey for the first game. I didn't catch the first half of this game, so I'm keen to get your thoughts, but the general vibe I thought was that he maybe didn't do as well as we thought he could in the first half, but he came on to a game in the second half against Israel. Would that be fair?
Yeah, it was a wee bit like the Hibs performance actually, where I didn't think Patterson done as well as possibly could have been in the first half, but really came on to a game in the second. And me, I absolutely love Nathan Patterson. I think he's a top talent. But round about that, I'd say I don't think neither Rangers nor Scotland played well in the first half, and that was just kind of symptomatic of it. But when he came on to a game in the second half of both games, really, you'd say he was a driving force there. Scotland, if you want to talk about Scotland specifically, a lot of what Scotland done well came down that right-hand side. And when you look at the other options that Scotland have there, like Stephen O'Donnell doesn't give you the same attacking output that Nathan Patterson does, not in a million years. maybe a serviceable enough defender, but that's not what you need in that system that Steve Clarke likes to play. You need someone who's going to be able to get balls into the box like Patterson done. Now, if you look at the other options there, Ryan Fraser just didn't work against the Faroe Islands, and if it's not going to work against the Faroe Islands, it's just not going to work, full stop. So Patterson has the Scotland shirt. Now, that's pretty much, it's not even a right-back debate, it's barely even a right-back conversation for Scotland at this point. Much different conversation for Rangers, but for Scotland, it's Nathan Patterson's shirt to lose. What he gives that team in terms of his attacking output and defensively as well, is pretty much unrivaled for what any other possible selection Steve Clarke could make. So yeah, he didn't play well in the first half against Israel. I'd really challenge you to find a Scotland player who did right enough. But when he came onto the game in the second half, he was brilliant. And when he came on against the Faroe Islands, obviously made a massive impact, set up the winning goal. So his shirt to lose for sure.
I think that's the thing, isn't it? You look at the impact he made in that second half and the chance that he got for John McGinn, and then obviously the cross in the second game. It's risk reward with that type of fullback anyway. We know that they're going to, because they're continually pushing and they're driving forward, some things won't come off. They may get caught at the back because they're so keen to help the team, particularly as well when he's 19 years old. He's going to have these type of games, but I think he's shown a lot in the last year or so in terms of character.
Sorry, I was going to say as well, you talk about the risk reward. See, from a Scotland perspective, right? So Nathan Patterson has had two. Now, the way they work, they might not necessarily count as a Sash, you'll be able to correct me on that, but he has two major impacts on two big games. One's at home to Moldova. Nathan Patterson has the run, gets a shot away, it's palmed out, Dyke scores. Second one, he comes on against the Faroe Islands, sets up the winning ball, Dyke goes in and scores. So that's, essentially two wins that you can credit more or less to Nathan Patterson being on the pitch. Now, without those two wins, Scotland are floundering in that group, and Israel are running away with second place because of Nathan Patterson. He's in a massive part to play with the fact that Scotland have essentially 1 foot in the qualification rounds. So the risk reward has already been proven. Like, the risks far outweigh any potential detriment to that Scotland side. A bit like the way we play. If you were to take out, say Tav's a captain as the number one pick for right back, I don't think that's really arguable. If you were to take him out of our side for the past couple of years, we've become really lopsided, and that's what Scotland have been previously, with all the attacks kind of floating through that sort of Robertson Tierney on the left hand side. So the risk reward's already been proven, like it's there, and that's why I'm saying it's his jersey because of the impact that he has on that side.
I think that's magnified when you play wing backs and three at the backs, absolutely, because the only width you have on that right hand side comes through that wing back. So I don't think Stephen O'Donnell is a terrible fullback, but he's a fullback for me. He's not a wing back that's going to give you what you can give. And I think Patterson's character for me is the big thing for him, because he's had, you might think, he's 19 and he's in the Rangers squad. He's had so much faith put in him. He's had everything handed to him. He's had so many setbacks in terms of COVID and injury, and then been in the Scotland team and been out the Scotland team and been in the Rangers team and been out the Rangers team, and every time something like that happens to him, he just comes back and answers the critics. I think he's a huge talent, but I really like the mental aspect as well, so that's great to see. It was good to get Kamar Roof and Fashion Sakala goals. I'm sure there'll be some of us listening that maybe don't think it's worth the hassle with them having such long journeys, but I think the players themselves will take great pride in that, and scoring goals at international level is only going to benefit Rangers as far as I'm concerned. So I'm happy for them to go ahead and do that. Okay, back to Rangers related stuff then, and Rangers released the Gallant Pioneers kit on Thursday as part of the club's 150th anniversary. This is the fourth kit this year, which is a wee bit excessive, I think, but this is an absolute beauty as far as I'm concerned, Ross. The strip is all white, and it's obviously a tribute to the first kit and the four young lads who had a dream back in 1872. There is some manufactured outrage, which is building as we record, Ross, but what's your thoughts on the strip itself first?
The strip itself's an absolute topper, and I think that's been almost kind of universally agreed upon.
Which is very rare.
Yes, I was going to say that we're a divided fan base at the best of times, especially when it comes to possibly the amount of different, ranges that Custore released with regards to Rangers. But I think this one's been pretty universally loved. Now, it's the easiest one Custore will ever have for as long as they are making football kits, because this is always the kit that everyone wanted. I'm sure in the kind of feedback sessions, this is always the one that people fed back in that they wanted for the 150th anniversary, this Gallant Pioneers kit. such an easy win to have, but when you actually see it and see it in person, it's an absolute topper. And I love how even the small details like the collar buttons to the side, that's the way it was in the original photo. I think that's a fantastic bit of homage. It has the Pioneers kind of embroidered in it, as far as I'm aware, as well. I'm going to get my hands on it tomorrow before the game. But it's such a lovely bit of kit. I think we're going to wear it in a competitive game, which gives me the fear a wee bit, even though, I think it's pretty well documented now that Gallant Pioneers kit in the photo was never actually worn competitively, so that'll be a debut for it as far as Rangers are concerned. But it's such an easy win for Castore, such an easy win for the club, and I'm really glad they pulled it off because it's an absolute topper.
Yeah, I took my little girl to the Majors training day yesterday, and it was good just to see that the strip was available to buy on the day. I guess you can say Castore are milking the cash cow, depending where you come to it. But from what I can see, that's just good marketing. You're going to have a lot of kids there wanting to go to the shop. There's a lot of footprint there. It's more of a kind of relaxed environment. You're not rushing about to get to the game, etc. So having the strip launch on that day to me just really made sense. So it's a big win, I think, from the marketing side, and obviously the strip itself, which is the most important thing, is absolutely gorgeous. So that's great to see. Just on the training day then, Ross, I know you weren't there either, or you weren't there, sorry, but I wasn't sure what to expect, to be honest. But it was a pretty good day out for the kids. It was good to see so many youngsters there. They had the opportunities to get photos with the trophy and Broxy from a distance. It was presented by Darryl Curry and Chris Broyd, and we got to hear from some of the Rangers women team, as well as a few of the men's players came over and did some pitch side interviews. There was an Ian Durrant interview, and then there was one each with Gerard McAllister and Tavernier to finish things off. The training session itself was quite interesting too. You kind of seen how they would build play and how they would defend, and then there was kind of small-sided games. They're a good idea, Ross. Obviously there'll be a lot of youngsters within the stands that are either training with Rangers or training separately with their own boys and girls clubs, so it's probably good for them to see exactly how the players do it. I think we can sometimes forget about that impressionable youngsters want to see how things happen behind the scenes as much as we do, and I thought it was a really good opportunity to get them in there, but also get them used to Ibrox in a bit more of a kind of quieter, chilled out way, rather than it being focused on the football and watching the game, etc. As an opportunity to go down and have a wander through the concourses, get your face painted, balloon animals, pictures with kind of fake trophies and all that sort of stuff. It was quite relaxed, and it was a really good atmosphere. What's your thoughts on them?
Yeah, I think they're a cracking idea from when you can do them, because this is the October break as well, isn't it, for school? So, it gives the kids something to do, it gives the parents something to do as well to keep the kids occupied during the week. But just getting them in and used to Ibrox in that relaxed environment, I think is a really massive thing. We say it a lot with friendlies, don't we? It's a really good way to introduce kids and stuff to Rangers, because it's not as intense. You don't have 50,000 people screaming at you for making a missed pass or anything like that. It's just a really nice, relaxed environment, and obviously Broxy's out. You can go get your face painted and stuff like that. I mean, that's the reason I didn't head along yesterday. I was working, and it's a kids thing. It's for the kids, and it should be, because that's a fantastic way of getting them involved with the club and interested in all things Rangers. I'm sure there'll be many kids who experience Ibrox for the first time yesterday, and that's what we should be doing. Doing these kind of things for, because it's not just about us as people who are already interested in the club. It's about the next generation as well, and we always need to be looking at how we can engage that next generation in Rangers and giving them different ways of doing that. It's not all just about going to the matches, although that is the main one for kids. That you need to have a wee bit more creativity than that, have a wee bit different levels of engagement, the face painting, having Brox out the pictures and all that kind of stuff is fantastic. They can see the players up close and personal. So if it's something that they'll do again, possibly in the spring break or something like that, then that'd be absolutely fantastic, because we talk about easy wins in terms of the kits. This is an easy win for the club as well, and a fantastic day out, as I've seen and heard from yourself. So I'm just delighted with it all in, to be honest.
Yeah, I think the only thing I would say is the weather wasn't exactly brilliant yesterday. The temperature had dropped a little bit, so having the kids there for a couple of hours maybe wouldn't be. We've been quite lucky, I guess, just now in terms of October, in terms of the weather. But any other October, I think it would have been a wee bit of a challenge. So I think it was rescheduled from the summer. So obviously, I'm sure we'll get some more summer ones as the years progress. I would have thought. I mentioned it earlier, Ross, and it's a wee bit of a developing story, so I'm not quite sure we've hit the peak of it yet, so we're not going to go into it in more detail. But the strip that we mentioned, there is some outrage from the usual suspects around the choice of the tune accompanying the video that Rangers put out. Every time something like this happens, I watch it unfold incredulously on Twitter. And I can't believe the reaction from some people, Ross. The usual gnashing of teeth from the usual suspects seeking offence where there is none. Like I said, we won't go into it in too much detail, but essentially, offence has been taken at the tune for Four Lads Had a Dream now because it is similar to the Sloop John B song. I have to admit I hadn't made that connection before. I'm not sure if that's something that many people had. I hadn't made the connection before. It's now so ingrained in my head, the Four Lads Had a Dream tune, that I don't really think of it being similar to anyone else. But safe to say there is absolutely zero offence throughout the lyrics, and it seems like it's getting treated, as I said, it's early days, Ross. It seems like it's getting treated with even more scorn and ridicule than previous things have, which is good news for us.
Yeah, because there's nothing in it, and look, it's not outrage, it's Fox outrage. The people doing it, and that's the thing we need to remember, the people doing it know in their heart of hearts that it's got no outrageous element towards it. They're doing it for attention, they're doing it to try and cause damage to Rangers, and it's coordinated. And look, see if they were really outraged by the Four Lads Had a Dream song, because that's exactly what it is. If they were really, really outraged by it, they would have, tweeted and done all the things yesterday morning when the video was released. They wouldn't have waited 24 hours to get their act together and then do it. And it's so nakedly obvious now, it's so boring and so depressing that we're used to it. And you're right, this one has been treated with a lot of ridicule because there is a lot to ridicule about it. There's nothing in it. It's just people trying to have a go at Rangers the day before, the season resumes after the international break. And it's a depressing state of where we are in this country. And it's why we can't have a grown-up conversation about serious issues in Scotland, because you have one side, one set of people who say ridiculous things like this, and it just cheapens the entire really serious conversation and debate. As I say, it's just depressing, it's just boring, and it should be treated with the absolute scorn and ridicule that it deserves.
It's funny how coordinated it is, as if they seem to think that we won't realise that nothing, like you said, nothing said for 24 hours. Then as soon as someone says something, then all of a sudden someone else pops up and says the same thing. And you can tell it is a coordinated thing for reasons that escape me, particularly when you actually sit down and think about it. It's willful ignorance, I think, on their part. But anyway, like I said, it's developing, and I'm sure David will go into it in more detail on the flagship on Monday, so we'll leave that one there and move on to the actual football. Ross, it'd be nice just to focus on that on these shows, but it seems less and less likely sometimes. So the manager had his pre-match press conference earlier today on Friday for Hearts. The main talking points, I think, from that were that Kemar Roofe will arrive back at some point today, which may make him a doubt to start the game. Hangover from the international break, as we mentioned there. It sounds like it's too early for Ryan Kent as well, who will only join training again on Monday after being out for over a month at this stage. And Ryan Jack, again, manager said will be a couple of weeks away. Probably past this point, Ross, but I'll ask it anyway. At what point do we start to get worried about Ryan Jack? He's not getting any younger, and he has had a number of injuries since he joined. I think the last time he played was possibly January or February this year, which is a fair old amount of time. Obviously an impact in Scotland as well, which I know you're interested in, but it's a serious injury, this one. I think they need to get it right, but the amount of time that this seems to be taking is having a bit of an impact, I think, both on the player and probably our squad.
I think Ryan Jack's been a couple of weeks away from fitness and Steven Gerrard took over the side, to be honest. It seems that long since we've actually had him fit and firing. You're right with what you say. Looks a serious injury, and they were right to try and take the time and get him professionally looked at and go through all the proper medical procedures to try and get it sorted once and for all, because it was becoming a bit of a niggling issue where you couldn't get him going for maybe longer than a month, 2 months before his body would betray him again. But you said, when do we get it? We're long past it. That's the thing, and it gets to the point. And look, I'm a Ryan Jack fan. I think my dad loves Ryan Jack almost as much as he loves me. He's a big favourite with a lot of the podders as well, a lot of the fans. And I know he's a big favourite of Steven Gerrard. But when you look at the cold hard reality and the cold hard facts, it does get to the point where at what point does he just become a bit of a burden? And I hate saying that because I love Ryan Jack as a player. I think he offers a lot to this Rangers team. But when he's never actually available, he's always on the treatment table, you need to start asking that kind of a question. Now, look, do I think Steven Gerrard will? Possibly not, because he does see a lot of himself in Ryan Jack and he'll want to give him every opportunity to get fit again, as we all do. But if this happens again, then you're not getting an awful lot of output for your input, if that makes sense, for the amount of time we're trying to spend rehabilitating Ryan Jack and getting him fit again. You need to start asking a couple of questions about, do we need a replacement option in there? Because I think it's a phrase that I don't really like using, but you think when he comes back, it's almost like having a new signing because you have that extra body. But even when he does come back, he's been out for so long now. How long does it take him to actually get fit and firing again? And I think that's a big thing. We mentioned it kind of briefly earlier on with Hollander, where you have that. That's just a short space of time, actually, in comparison to Ryan Jack. But even he's going to take a wee while to actually get back up to the Hollander that we know and love. It's going to take Ryan Jack even longer. And I seen on his Instagram the other day, he was back out training with a ball, which is fantastic. But it's going to take him a couple of weeks to get back to match fitness. And then it's going to take him another couple of weeks to get back to match sharpness, because those are two completely different things. And it's just about at what point do we need to start asking more serious questions than what we are. And if we can get Ryan Jack, with the Ryan Jack that we know he can be, fit and firing, that's fantastic, because that's a major benefit to the Rangers. But the doubt is there about just how realistic that is, given he's not getting any younger, given the length of time he's been out for. It's becoming more and more of a growing concern, if I'm being honest, which is really unfortunate to see, as I say, because I really like Ryan Jack. I think he offers a lot, but if it happens again, then it's becoming a really massive concern.
You also have the facts as well, which I don't think anybody really wants to be thinking about at this point, is that his contract is going to be up in about 18 months' time. So while we're emotional as fans, I don't think the club will be as emotional, and they'll be looking to see if we can't get this guy fit and he's coming to the point where he's going to be needing a new contract, are we really in a position to do that? It's not a situation I think anybody wants to be in, because I think most people would be quite happy if Ryan Jack remained part of the squad until he retired. But you would hope that retirement is a good 6 or 7 years away yet. Fingers crossed. I mean, it could just be that they're taking extra precautions with him, but it just seems like this trundles on. Every couple of weeks, it's another few weeks before he's back, and before we know it, it'll be January. Fingers crossed he's back by then, but like we said, we'll wait and see. But definitely doesn't sound like he'll be available for another couple of weeks at least. The manager mentioned Hearts in the press conference, obviously, as he would. He said, "I'm pleased to see Hearts back in the top flight after how they were treated," which is interesting, Ross. They've recruited well and have a good squad. It's no surprise to me that they have started well, but our focus is on us tomorrow and putting some distance between the two teams come 5 p.m. Great to see Hearts back. I think the manager obviously alluding to the season being cut short last season, where Hearts and Partick Thistle were unfairly relegated, so it's brilliant that they've been able to bounce back. We were speaking about this off air, Ross. I think Hibs have been getting a lot of credit for how high up the league they've been. I don't think Hearts are getting anywhere near the credit that Hibs are getting, but I think Hearts deserve a lot more. It's a brand new team. They've just been promoted and they're 1 point off the pace at the top of the league after 8 games. You think back to, it's maybe a wee bit early for you, but George Burley, or certainly a couple of years ago when they had a good team and they were getting praised to the high heavens. I don't think they're getting anywhere near the praise that they deserve for how good a start to the season they've had, and it'll be a tough game on Saturday.
I think they've went quite under the radar as well, which is weird, because you would think the two Edinburgh clubs would be kind of praised in tandem, but it's not been like that at all. Before the international break, when we were playing Hibs, all the hype was about Hibs, really, in terms of, can Hibs push for a title challenge? Can Hibs, try and take Rangers all the way this season? Hearts were, a point behind them maybe at the time.
Yep.
It's been nothing like that. You've not had anywhere near that level of noise for a team that's keeping pace at top of the league. I always found that a wee bit strange as well. Especially, I had a wry smile myself when the manager mentioned that, but you think the way they were put down to the Championship, bounced back, promoted fairly easily, but then they were treading water at the end of last season. I think you used to get fairly decent odds for Hearts to get beat, if you're a betting person. And sometimes that can feed in to a new season. I think we've seen it before with Rangers teams, where a bad finish to the previous season can lead to a bad start in the new season. It's not been like that at all. They've started the season absolutely flying. They're 1 point off the pace, and then they're coming to Ibrox tomorrow. And maybe a bit like Hibs, will probably fancy themselves to go and do a wee bit of damage. I don't think we'll be quite as nervous possibly as fans as what we were for that game, for lack of a better word, but they'll fancy themselves. They've got every right to, the position they are in the league, and I don't think they're really getting enough credit, to be honest, from where they've came from, where they've been and where they are now. I always find it a wee bit weird how they've not had the same hype around them as possibly Hibs have. But I'd like to kill any potential hype around them tomorrow afternoon, same as what Steven Gerrard said. Put a wee bit of daylight between us and them by 5 p.m. and we're in a really good position.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a really tough game. Like we said, they've got some really good players. Gordon obviously having a bit of a renaissance on the international stage. They've got Halkett and Suter at the back, Benny Baningame in midfield, and then they've got quite a lot of talent up front, really, when you think about it. Potential maybe, or wasted potential in some instances, but Barry Mackay, Ben Woodburn, Jamie Walker, Gary Mackay-Steven, and then obviously they've got a goal scorer, which I think every team needs. So I think there'll be a challenge. It's a game I'm really looking forward to. John Lundstrom obviously was out for press conference as well. Something interesting that he mentioned was, when asked about rotation across the midfield, he said he played the deeper number 6 role for most of his career, and it's only really been the last couple of seasons where he's played in the more attacking positions. I know we've spoken about this quite a bit over the course of the last few weeks on pods, etc. But I think that deep number 6 rotation role with Davis is now Lundstrom's to keep. Ross, are you expecting him to start tomorrow? Davis has obviously just came back. He's played those 2 games international break, whereas Lundstrom has been fresh. Are you expecting it to be Lundstrom to start the game with Davis on the bench, or do you think we'll go with the more experienced player?
I wouldn't be surprised if Lundstrom started, especially given the form he was in pre-international break. He was absolutely flying, man in the match, and I think our previous 2 games, or 2 domestic ones anyway, before the international break, he is hitting a bit of a purple patch in terms of form, and maybe changed a lot of opinions there. And we do need to be really careful about Stephen Davis. We've got Brøndby on Thursday, which is a must-win. I don't care what anyone says. It's an absolute must-win for us. That is a massive game. And I think having Stephen Davis away with Northern Ireland, him coming back and playing those 2 games, we do need to be a wee bit wary of not burning him out and taking it easy with him, because he is getting to that age where, look, he offers Rangers a hell of a lot. Stephen Davis, you could, as I said right at the top of the show, wax lyrical about him for as long as you wanted, but you can't burn him out. And I think we were starting to see that a wee bit with Stephen Davis, maybe in his earlier performances in the season, where we were using him constantly. You just can't do that, not for a player at his age, not for the role you want him to do. So it wouldn't surprise me at all if Lundstrom started in there, and I think he'll possibly keep Davis fresh for Thursday, would be my prediction, purely because of the way Lundstrom's acquitted himself in that role. As I say, he's had a bit of a purple patch of form. He's been really, really good for us the last couple of games, and you need to be really, really wary of what you do with Stephen Davis, because you don't want to run him into a position where you just run him into the ground and then you maybe injure him or something like that, and it becomes a much bigger, longer term problem, one which we really can't afford to have in that midfield, if we're being honest.
Yeah, I think there's 3 rotation options for tomorrow that I can't call who will play, but I think you're talking about, will it be Barisic or Bassi at left back, and you would imagine the other would play midweek against Brøndby. I think the same is for Davis and Lundstrom, and then centre half as well, given Balogun got a little bit of a niggle, and again he's 33 and been away on flights, etc., and playing 2 games for Nigeria. I would imagine there'll be a bit of rotation there with Simpson for the game tomorrow. I'd probably be more inclined to go something like Bassi alongside Simpson, and then maybe Davis in the centre midfield. But really, it could be any combination of those. So I think that's the big talking points, I think, for tomorrow. Ross, I would think that Roof may not make the starting 11, but we've obviously got a bit more flexibility up there with Aribo and Hadji and Scott Wright to come in. What's your predictions then for the game? I'm just absolutely delighted there's a Saturday 3:00 game, to be honest. I think this is our first, it's certainly the first that we've been able to go out to the pub, etc. in 18 months, but it's the first one of the season for sure, and I'm absolutely looking forward to a home game at Ibrox. But what's your thoughts? How do you think the game's going to go?
That's Saturday at 3, where it's meant to be, is the old saying, isn't it? I
Yep.
cannot wait for it either. How I think it's going to go is going to be tough. It's going to be really, really tough. I think it will be maybe a wee bit like the Hibs game. Hopefully not in the sense that we go behind and have to fight back the way we did, but Hearts are going to make it really tough for us. As you said, they've got goal scorers there. They've got more than enough players who can hurt Rangers if we're not solid at the back, which is something we can't say we've necessarily been this season so far. I think it's going to be a really good game, actually. Maybe not a bit of a grind, but we are going to have to dig really, really deep tomorrow to try and get a result. And if we're not on it 100%, then we could end up in serious bother because, as I said, the Hearts will fancy themselves. They've got every right to with the position they are in the league. I think we'll win. I think it'll be really, really tight. And I'm not sure this is going to be, for your Heart, the most enjoyable 90 minutes. I'll go with another 2-1 win. We'll go ahead. I think they'll pull one back and then we'll go ahead again. If I'm going to go that far, that'll be my prediction. But I'm going to go with a 2-1 win. Maybe a bit of a nervy game, a really high quality game, but maybe a bit of a nervy game. I think we're going to have a couple of shaky moments, but I do expect us to come out and do the business in the end. Although, as much as I'm looking forward to this, it's one of those ones where I'm somewhat simultaneously quite nervous for.
Yeah, I think it will be. Hopefully, it's not as edgy as the Hibs game, but I think your scoreline's probably fair. But I'm going to be slightly more optimistic and go for a 2-0 to Rangers. Okay, that will do us for tonight's show. Ross, thank you for joining me.
Thanks very much for having me, mate. Cheers.
No problem at all. And like I said, David will be back on Monday with a review of the Hearts game. Thank you all for listening.